deliberately.
Recording in progress.
2 o'clock, okay. We're good, okay. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Ethics Advisory Board for January 10th, 2023. Welcome, everybody. And first order of business, are there any changes to the agenda? Seeing none, okay. Next item is public comment. I have 2 blue cards. If there's anybody else who wishes to speak, you should fill one out. I've got them in order here. The first speaker is Alana Byrd. And if you'd like to come up, we'll give you 3 minutes.
Sure, thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Alana Byrd, a resident of Fall Creek and a member of Ithacans for Reimagining Public Safety. We are a grassroots coalition funded by People for the American Way of community members interested in an Ithaca Police Department that includes unarmed community solutions workers and one that embodies the values of cultural sensitivity, diverse ranks, community-based problem solving, and a nonviolent approach to protecting our residents. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. Dear members of the Tompkins County Ethics Advisory Board, documents recently produced in response to a Freedom of Information Law request demonstrate that the chair of the board, Rich John, is unfit to serve in his current capacity without bias. As you are aware, the documents reveal that Mr. John and Alderperson Brock colluded on an opinion piece Alderperson Brock published in April 2022, which forms the basis of the ethics complaint now before you. In fact, the opinion piece is specifically cited in Alderperson Brock's ethics complaint. The opinion piece incorporates numerous substantive edits and additions provided by Mr. John, including Mr. John's assertion that the Reimagining Public Safety process violated New York State's ethics laws, and the allegations relating to the services provided by Matrix Consulting. Given Mr. John failed to publicly disclose his clear conflict of interest and recuse himself as a result, I have a series of questions I'd like board members to answer on the record for the benefit of the public. 1. Prior to the City of Ithaca Attorney's December 3rd, 2022 letter to the board, did Mr. John disclose his communications with Alderperson Brock and involvement in drafting the opinion piece that forms the basis of Alderperson Brock's ethics complaint to the members of the board? If so, when did Mr. John disclose this to the board, and why was this disclosure not made public? 2, the substance of much of the board's investigation focuses on an alleged lack of transparency. How do board members respond to the fact that the creation of the ethics complaint has been born out of little transparency, with the appearance of collusion by the person tasked with overseeing the investigation? 3, prior to former Mayor Myrick submitting his December 8th, 2022 letter to Mr. John, did Mr. John disclose that former Mayor Myrick and the City of Ithaca had previously refused Mr. John's request to evict all unhoused residents of the jungle on behalf of his personal real estate venture? If so, when did Mr. John disclose this to the board, and why were Mr. John's personal business dealings with former Mr. Myrick and the City of Ithaca not made public? 4, given Mr. John's clear conflicts of interest, why has the board not determined that Mr. John should recuse himself? 5, does Mr. John's failure to recuse himself, let alone publicly disclose any actual or potential conflicts of interest, not run the risk of establishing an untenable precedent that would allow members of the board to rule on ethics complaints that they have helped to create? Does it not undermine the real or perceived impartiality of the board and its ability to conduct a fair and unbiased investigation? As each of you are attorneys, you can certainly understand that Mr. John's clear conflicts of interest and the bias and prejudices that may exist as a result would be grounds to remove Mr. John as both a judge and juror in this matter. The failure to even disclose such conflicts of interest to the public that this board serves is even more egregious.
If you could wrap it up.
Sure. I'm almost done. Throughout this investigation, the board has made clear that full transparency is key to assure the public that the board's investigation and ultimate advisory opinion is fair and unbiased. However, to date, the members of the board have not publicly addressed the numerous concerns raised about this process and have instead deferred to outside legal counsel to respond on their behalf. In the interest of full transparency that the board has espoused, I respectfully request that each member of the board personally addresses the legitimate questions and concerns I and others have raised so that the public can properly be informed of the board's consideration of these important issues. Further, in light of Mr. John's conflicts of interest and his failure to disclose same, I urge the board to ask that Mr. John recuse himself and take any other steps it deems necessary to ensure the public's trust and confidence in the legitimacy of this investigation and any future investigations. Thank you, and I have copies of these questions and supporting documents for members of the board.
Thank you. Next up is Zach Quinn.
Good afternoon. I have prepared remarks. I feel it's based on the previous comment. I believe Rich acknowledged that he would have been conflicted out at the beginning of this process were there someone else to serve in this capacity as chair of the board. And I think it's pretty rich that former Mayor Myrick's employee would come in here and make complaints about conflicts of interest and impartiality. I find it very amusing. And with that said, I'm sure the board is aware that the city of Ithaca released a report it had commissioned into reimagining public safety. Media coverage of the report locally has emphasized that there were, quote, transparency issues, unquote, but, quote, no clear ethical violations, unquote. This is a semantical distinction as far as I am concerned. Center for Policing Equity also published an editorial essentially absolving themselves of wrongdoing and dismissing the investigations as political theater. I invite the board to bear these things in mind as you work to conclude your own report. The work product of the Reimagining Public Safety process continues to be implemented with the City, County, Community Justice Center moving forward. There's a simultaneous refusal on the part of local elected officials to acknowledge the negative effects of the reimagining public safety process, be they intentional or unintentional. Specifically, law enforcement, morale, staffing, and the effect of the process on the city's reputation nationally. This is occurring against the backdrop of a major increase in crime, seizures of meth, fentanyl, illegal guns, and a large increase in overdoses. I hope at the conclusion of this board's work, there will be a more complete picture of what went on, and you can get everyone on the same page. I also found it curious that the county's former diversity, equity, inclusion officer now is an employee of Center for Policing Equity. And I just find the entire nature of the relationships to be very incestuous and odd. There's just the same handful of people in a certain handful of positions that seem to be having an undue influence over the process, which it seems to be an example of manipulating procedural outcomes, if you'd like to look into what that phrase signifies. So with that said, I'm going to yield the remainder of my time and let you get back to your very important work. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who wishes to address the Ethics Advisory Board? Seeing none, I'd move on to minutes of December 13th, 2022. Does anybody want to put the minutes on the floor? Sharon moves. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Katie seconds. Thank you. Any questions or comments on the minutes? I call a vote. Show of hands. All right. That's unanimous. Okay. Is there any update on information received? I don't know that we've received anything further. There have been some additional postings to the web page, but okay. Well, I guess, yeah, yep, that's it. Okay. And I believe we probably will need another meeting at least. We have more meetings to have. So we should take a moment, look at calendars. And I'd like to try to have our next meeting fairly soon if we could to keep this process going. Gretchen, you said there are certain days that don't work for you. Is that the end of the week?
Tuesday and Wednesday afternoons are the only times.
Okay. I am out of town next Tuesday and Wednesday, so that would push us into the week of the 23rd.
Thursdays and Fridays aren't good then.
After 4, I could do it after 4.
Well, I guess that probably is not good. Thursday, I think, after 4 probably. Is there a meeting here after 4? No, maybe not.
I believe, well, is there a meeting here on the 24th?
I'm talking about the 19th.
There's nothing on the 24th that week. We do have a meeting the 25th and 26th that are around 4 o'clock.
But the 24th is open?
24th is open all day.
Okay. On the 19th, I'm here, but that's because I'm chairing a different meeting.
Okay. All
So-
right, yeah.
so that would
Clarifying it, that's all.
That would block us from proceeding. Do you want to tentatively schedule for the 24th then, if that works?
Do we want to do 2 o'clock again?
That work for everybody? 2 o'clock on the 24th. Thank you, everybody. Great. Okay. Is there any other business we should attend to before going into executive session? Seeing none, could I get a motion to go into executive session? All right. And
Rich,
the purpose of the executive session is to discuss and deliberate. Yes. So Gretchen moved. Do I have a second? Katie seconds. All those in favor? That's unanimous. All right, we'll take a few minutes to shut down the system. And we will take no action when we come out of executive session today.
Recording stopped.